UFC Fight Night Vegas 84, Ankalaev versus Walker 2 takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Joshua Van versus Felipe Bunes. Looking forward to this one. Joshua Van is a very promising prospect in the flyweight division. I don't think there's many people that are going to be picking against him here. Felipe Bunes is pretty untested. He was supposed to actually get the fight against Zhalgas. There was a time when Zhalgas was losing a bunch of opponents over and over again, and Felipe Bunes stepped up to take the fight when he wasn't really supposed to be in the UFC, but he had visa issues. And then Joshua Van stepped in and took the fight instead. So he took the fight that Felipe Bunes would have had to get into the UFC. And Joshua Van beat Zhalgas on short notice, winning that fight against him. And Felipe Bunes, he's good. He's not UFC level. He has a chance at beating Joshua Van. He has got some power in his punches. Coming off a KO win. Won that fight with a left hook behind the ear as a guy was going for a 1-2. I watched back that fight. Felipe Bunes is good, but I've noticed even in his last fight that he had, he's still open to get caught himself when he's going for some of these shots, and the opponent and him just looked like very low-level MMA fighters swinging big, powerful shots against each other, whereas Joshua Van has more of a technique to him. He tucks his chin, he goes to the body, and then rips upstairs afterwards. I don't think he's going to be headhunting early, and I think if he stays smart and composed and tucks up and finds body shots here and there, I think he'll have a much better success, especially if he's not trading power punches. Felipe Bunes actually got rocked in the fight that he won in his last fight. He got wobbled quite badly by a right hand and had to shoot in for the clinch. He gets caught up swinging power shots, and I think Van can get his jab out there. And once he has his jab out there a little bit, he can start ripping to the body and then start finding the shots upstairs. So I'm going to go Joshua Van by TKO in the third or late second round. We move on. Up the card, Nikolas Motta versus Tom Nolan. I'm going with Tom Nolan. Very impressive fighter in the lightweight division. Little bit untested. Gotta be honest, little bit untested. We've seen him win a bunch of fights very, very early. Very, very good finisher. Since his second fight that he had in his career, he's been finishing a bunch of people left and right. Won his fight on the Contender Series with a very impressive KO. He is a little bit open now and then, but I think at 6'2", 73 inches of reach in the lightweight division. Not a crazy reach for 6'2", by the way, but still, for a lightweight, he's a massive dude. And Nikolas Motta's just been too finishable recently in his career. And his only win recently has come by beating Cameron Van Camp, who doesn't win. Like, he just gets KO'd. That's Cameron Van Camp's thing, it seems like. Manel Torres, brutal KO over Nikolas Motta, finished him in the first round. Trey Ogden just beat him. Outright beat him. He would have subbed him with that, but the referee absolutely ruined it, so it got overturned to a draw instead. Nikolas Motta shouldn't even be in the UFC right now. Got KO'd and sparked by Jim Miller as well. I've just seen him sparked too many times to imagine that Tom Nolan won't do the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Tom Nolan, big enough, powerful enough, dangerous enough in the first round to catch Nikolas Motta on that chin and put him away by TKO. We move on. Up the card, Westin Wilson versus Gene Silva. I'm going to go with Gene Silva. Watched his fight on the Contender Series. Pretty good. Nothing too crazy or anything like this guy's going to be a future world champion, but Westin Wilson just isn't UFC level. And I'm annoyed that we're finding more and more of these guys on the cards nowadays just because they're from the US and they took a fight on short notice. It's getting annoying. Westin Wilson is not UFC level. Just got smoked by Joe Anderson Brito. Fair play, it's Joe Anderson Brito and he's really good. But at the same time, Westin Wilson lost a fight to Teruto Ishihara in 2022. This ain't 2013 anymore. You know what I mean? You can't be losing fights to Teruto Ishihara anymore. Teruto Ishihara beat him, if I'm correct in saying that. I hope I am. I'm going to double check it right now. I am. Got beaten by Teruto Ishihara. Beat a bunch of schmucks. 9-19, 4-3, 8-5. Won a boxing match against a random. Fought a 6-3, 2-3, 6-4, then fought an 8-4 guy, got finished in the first round. Like, there's just so many losses on his career. And between those losses, I mean, check this. Lost to an 11-6 opponent by armbar in the second round. Proceeds to fight an 8-7 opponent, a 4-2 opponent, loses to a 7-1, 6-3, fights an 0-0, then a 1-14. Like, these opponents are just awful. And it screams that a gym really likes the personality of this guy, Westin Wilson, but they know he's not really got it. He first fought in his career, after having an amateur career, by the way, fought a 1-2 guy, an 8-12 guy, a 2-3 opponent, lost to a 4-3 opponent, so thought, you know what, I'll take a back step and actually get myself a win, signed a fight against a 13-20 opponent, and lost. There's problems here, and I'm going to have to go with Gene Silva for having a legitimate career that's not padded to get him to the UFC. We move on. Up the card, Farid Basharat versus Taylor Lapilus. I was actually thinking of taking Taylor Lapilus as an underdog here, but Damon Blackshear's not half bad. Farid Basharat has had good performances. He's had some close fights in his career against Damon Blackshear in his debut. He had a pretty competitive fight with him, but used his wrestling to get it done. Beat Clayton Rodriguez pretty easily, though. I just feel like I was going to pick Taylor Lapilus, but I rewatched his fight with Cowlin Loughran. Cowlin Loughran, I want him to do well in the UFC, but he looked like trash in that fight with Taylor Lapilus. Like, he was going for the same shots over and over and over again. No versatility on the feet whatsoever. Couldn't get the takedown, so maybe Taylor Lapilus will stuff the takedowns of Farid Basharat. But I just think Basharat is on a different level to him. And Taylor Lapilus versus Cowlin Loughran, there should have been a point where he started schooling Loughran in that fight, in my opinion. And he never took it to that point. He just stayed at the barely outstriking him at range type fight. So I'm going to go Farid Basharat. I think he's a lot better. I just don't think Taylor Lapilus has what it takes. Again, I just watched back the Cowlin Loughran fight and I was like, you know what, that actually wasn't that impressive. Both these guys didn't look that good. And Loughran just wouldn't engage and was throwing the same shots over and over again, and Lapilus never really made reads on him. So I'm going to go Farid Basharat getting this one done. Pretty confident in him winning. We move on. Up the card, Marcus McGhee versus Gaston Bolanos. Another mismatch on the card. Marcus McGhee's going to absolutely obliterate Gaston Bolanos. Can't see this fight going any other way. Gaston Bolanos is a good kickboxer, but his grappling is interesting. He's actually used some grappling to win a fight against Aaron Phillips. No, he didn't. Aaron Phillips was grappling with him. But he was the one doing way more damage. He's got good striking. He's got good kickboxing. But I just think the grappling is a problem. And Marcus McGhee can grapple very well. Really good at grappling. And he can strike very well as well. So I think being competitive with Gaston Bolanos on the feet, or maybe arguably beating him at moments, is going to make Bolanos a little bit more uncomfortable on the feet, to where normally he's very comfortable and he can see takedowns coming. And I think eventually Marcus McGhee will find the takedown and choke him out. Maybe second round rear naked choke for Marcus McGhee. Mismatch. We move on. Up the card, Matthew Semelsberger versus Preston Parsons. Am I going to trust this TKO ruiner one more time? I am. I absolutely am going to trust him to win. Matthew Semelsberger has ability to win. Preston Parsons can grapple, but from what we've seen, Semelsberger stays alive on the ground. So I don't see Preston Parsons finishing him there. Maybe he can get him there, but I doubt it. I don't think he's of the strength level and the grappling offense level of Jeremiah Wells. Semelsberger nearly finished him twice as well. Really badly hurt him in the first. Really badly hurt him in the second. Dropping him both times. Nearly finishing him afterwards. Got robbed in that fight badly. But at the same time, he messes up TKO finishes so often. He might have one of the highest knockdown to not finishing an opponent ratios that we've ever seen in the UFC. I'm going to go Semelsberger. Much larger. Much longer reach as well. Dangerous on the feet. Coming off a loss to Uros Medic, which doesn't look too good, but he was a lightweight and they're typically way better on the feet. And it was at altitude as well, which I don't think benefits Semelsberger's style in hindsight of throwing power punches and really trying to knock someone out. So I'm going to go with, and even in that fight, he messed up a finish with Vildos Medic. I'm going to go with Semelsberger. The only time I've been in any way impressed by Preston Parsons was because he was fighting Trevin Giles, but Giles was making massive mistakes trying to beat him. Massive, massive mistakes, finding himself on bottom position. Maybe Semelsberger will do the same. I just think he's got a very high likelihood of landing a big KO shot. I'm going to go against Preston Parsons and pick Matthew Semelsberger here. So that's what I'm going for. Even though Parsons isn't bad, beat Evan Elder, so he's good. He's a good fighter. I'm just going to go Semelsberger with the finishing instincts and ability to finish in this fight. I like those odds. We move on. Andrei Arlovski versus Waldo Cortes-Acosta. There's going to be a trend with this fight and the very next fight I'm going to break down in this video. I just can't trust the chin anymore. Sometimes you just can't trust it anymore. Andrei Arlovski used to have a chin where, fair enough, if you land clean, you're probably going to wobble him or KO him at least. But he's tricky enough to where it's going to be hard to land clean on him. I don't like what I've been seeing from Andrei recently. You went from beating, normally, when you started saying, oh, you know, like he's got a fight coming up against Dontel Mays. This would be the level of opponent where you would say, oh, well, Arlovski's terrible and he's not top level anymore, but he beats the Dontel Mayses of the division. He doesn't beat them anymore. He got KO'd by Dontel Mays. He should have lost to Jake Collier. It was a robbery. Making it close against Jared Vandera at this point. I think he's lost his edge a little bit, in my honest opinion, Andrei Arlovski. I think Waldo Cortes-Acosta, great performance in his last fight against Lucas Bursky. Knocked him out very brutally as well. Very, very brutally. He's got good boxing and he dealt with low kicks pretty well in his last fight. Checked a few of them if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to go with Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Andrei is 44 years of age. At this point, the UFC's just got to get rid of him because they're paying him like $400k to fight. And he's not worth $400k in terms of eyeballs that he's bringing to a card. So I think the UFC want him to lose. I think they know he's going to lose. I'm going to go Waldo Cortes-Acosta, first round KO with the boxing, and get rid of Arlovski. Sadly, it might be his retirement fight, but he's just costing too much money to be putting against these bottom level fat heavyweights. We move on. Phil Hawes versus Bruno Ferreira. Speaking of chins I just can't trust anymore. I know Bruno Ferreira's coming off a TKO loss, but it was to Nursultan Ruzaboev, I believe his name is. Yes, that's his name, Nursultan Ruzaboev. Pretty good. Had some losses here and there on the regional scene, but a very, very experienced regional vet, I think we can admit. 35-8. 35, I think he was 34-8 going into that fight. That's a lot of experience to have. Manages to get the KO in the first round over Bruno Ferreira. Bruno Ferreira, now fair enough, I think Gregory Rodriguez is kind of like a Phil Hawes prototype. Very good, has ability to grapple, knockout power of his own, good striking, but you touch that chin and it's worrying. And Phil Hawes does have a decent shot of going out there and winning. But I'm just going to go through it with you. Someone just uploaded a compilation of me reacting to Phil Hawes' KO losses. And it's just me saying he doesn't have a chin. Against Chris Curtis, he got touched once with a left hook and just shut off his whole body. 2022. I mean, Roman Dolidze puts him away. I know it was a brutal KO loss and it wasn't to do with his chin. It was a nasty KO. Got his leg torn apart in that fight and it's just another KO loss to suffer. Deron Wynn, he ended up beating, but Deron Wynn is an obese flyweight as far as I'm concerned. Ikram Aliskerov puts him out cold, badly puts him out cold as well. Again, just one clean shot on the chin, and he completely switches off. So I'm going to bet that Bruno Ferreira can land at least 5 clean punches on the chin of Phil Hawes in this fight. And I think if he lands 5 of them, one of them is going to put him out cold. So I'm going to go with Bruno Ferreira getting this one done. We move on. Ricky Simone versus Mario Bautista. I really believed in Mario Bautista as a prospect. I want to get that out there immediately. I really believed in Mario Bautista as a prospect. Recent fight against Damon Blackshear. I know Damon Blackshear's not bad, but there was some moments in that fight from Mario Bautista. Forget about... It's not even about having a close fight. It's about how you look in that close fight. And Mario Bautista was fighting like a rookie out there in that fight. Not separating when he needed to. Engaging in the clinch with Damon Blackshear when he didn't need to either. Not taking advantage on the feet in certain moments. He was just not... Maybe he had an off night, and maybe that now he'll go out there and beat a Ricky Simone somehow. But he arguably should have lost that fight to Damon Blackshear. I watched it back. He arguably should have lost that fight to Damon Blackshear. And I do like Ricky Simone. I think he's a good fighter. Song Yudong is amazing. And he's the best of the rest at bantamweight, as we're finding out. When it comes to people outside the top 5, is what I'm saying here. Song Yudong's like the best non-top 5 guy in the bantamweight division right now, or at least one of them. If Piotr Jan's maybe number 6, who knows. Ricky Simone, very good. Had his losses in his career, but he can grapple offensively, and he can strike quite well. And I don't think Mario Bautista's got the power on the feet to put him away. So I'm going to have to go with Ricky Simone edging him out by decision. 29-28. Again, I just didn't like that performance against Damon Blackshear. It showed me a lot of moments where I'm like, okay, if this happens against a better opponent, you're just going to lose. You ain't going to be afforded this win. And Damon Blackshear was taking him down and out-grappling him, and I'm just like, Ricky Simone's a very strong, good, capable grappler. I reckon he can mix it in and win this fight 29-28 at least. We move on. Up the card, Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benitez. I'm going my boy Jim Miller. Is it subconsciously because I want him to win? Yes. But I am going to go with Jim Miller here. I think he's way more consistent of an old man out of the two of them. And I know that Gabriel Benitez isn't that old compared to Jim Miller, but he just ain't been active. Won his last fight against Charlie Ontiveros. Basically got given a layup, which is what Charlie Ontiveros is. Before that, lost to David Onama by KO. But was doing okay and landing his own shots in that fight. Don't get me wrong. But he's just been out now for 2 years. Or a year and a half nearly. It's been a while now since he's been in the cage. Whereas Jim Miller has been staying active. Fighting good opponents. Some of them are short notice fill-ins. I get that. But he's still whooping these guys like a prime Jim Miller would. He's not looking slow. He's not looking out of it. Like sometimes you'll notice Ricky Glenn after the Grant Dawson fight just started looking absolutely awful in all of his fights. He's still got it. He's still got that fast twitch muscle. He's still got that testosterone flowing through him. He's on a 3-fight win streak as of right now. Wait, no. He's not, because he lost to Alexander Hernandez in a very scrappy fight that went to a war. I'm just going to go against him when it comes to Gabriel Benitez. I think he has a better finishing ability out of the two of them. So I'm going to go with Jim Miller. I'm going to go with Jim Miller getting this one done by TKO finish in the first round. Hopefully, he can then turn around and be on UFC 300. We need him on there. We move on to the fight we've all been waiting for. Matheus Nicolau versus Manel Kape 2, the rematch. Now this is the matchup in the flyweight division. I'm going to go with Manel Kape winning this fight by decision, 30-27, maybe 29-28. I think he's going to out-busy Matheus Nicolau. Nicolau has an ability to slow down a fight, but when we saw his fight with Manel Kape, Kape keeps such a good pressure on people where he can still dip back out the way of shots, where he can make you a busier fighter than you're actually used to being. And that is something that's going to make Nicolau a bit more scrappy. And I think if Nicolau does get a bit more scrappy, Manel Kape's going to beat him this time round. I think Manel Kape beat him the first time round. I think Manel Kape won that first fight, second and third round. Very close fight. I'm not going to say it was a brutal robbery, but I think it was a clear Manel Kape win because he was actually doing some damage with those knees to the body in the third round, and I think that's what it came down to. But again, Matheus Nicolau has an ability to just make fights very slow, make people miss, and then try and land his counter shots on their chin. He did it to Matt Schnell, sorry. He did it to David Dvorak as well, slowed the fight down, won it in moments. I just don't think he's going to be able to lead the dance against Manel Kape. I think Manel Kape's going to be in his face, pick up the volume a little bit, and I'm going to go with Manel Kape getting this one done. I think he's massively improved. His timing's improved. Last opponent he got was a tricky one. Short notice replacement. Tough dude. Went out there, started swinging like crazy on him and scrapping. I don't think Nicolau's got that dog in him the same way a guy with nothing to lose has. So I'm going to go with Manel Kape in a very medium level entertainment fight. Being able to outpoint Matheus Nicolau and maybe drop him at the end of a round or wobble him in a moment and start going for a finish. I just think Manel Kape has a much better in-the-pocket fight style, and eventually there's going to be moments where this fight does get to the pocket, like there was in the first fight against each other. And again, I thought Manel Kape won, and he's better, in my honest opinion, and he's, I think he's younger as well. Just going to double check. Yes, he is younger. So yeah, I'm going Manel Kape. We move on. Up the card, Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. I'm going to go Johnny Walker. That's the underdog right there. Main event, underdog. First fight card back. I don't care. I'm going to go Johnny Walker. I've got a real feeling he finishes Magomed Ankalaev. And I liked the last fight that they had against each other because I'm telling you this. If there's either a fighter going to be emotional going into this next fight, Ankalaev has been wronged so many times in a row now in his own mind. You can not mind the Jan Blachowicz fight going to a draw. I don't mind it going to a draw. But he fights Anthony Smith, doesn't get his title shot, has to fight Jan Blachowicz. The fight goes to a draw. Now he fights Walker to get his title shot. Goes to a no contest because he knees him in the face instead of a disqualification for some random and bizarre reason. He gets that privilege. And then Johnny Walker is now rebooked against him. I feel like Johnny Walker's going to beat him. I think he's going to beat him. I think he has a much better finishing ability on the feet. I liked that he was trying to play games with being hurt to the body and then going for a flying knee. And I liked that he was able to immediately get back up from the takedown in the round one where Ankalaev did get him down, but Walker got right back to his knees, right back to his base up against the cage, was about to start standing back up, and then Ankalaev knees him in the face illegally. So I'm going to go with Johnny Walker. 7-inch reach advantage on the feet. I think he's just more dangerous in this fight, and if anyone's going to get a sudden wicked finish, I think it's going to be Walker. Whereas Ankalaev, you know, sometimes he's a bit ploddy. Sometimes he takes his time. He has good hands, but he's got a 75-inch reach for that division compared to Walker's 82. I feel like sometimes he fights like these other guys ain't going to be able to catch him, where normally you might think that he's safe in certain positions. So I'm going to go with Johnny Walker. I'm going to go with Johnny Walker, getting this one done over Ankalaev. Yeah, I'm going Walker by KO. I like his chances here. And I like the frustration aspect of this fight for Ankalaev. Fight Jan Blachowicz, go to a draw, feel like you got wronged completely. Then come back, fight Walker. This is my time for a title shot. No contest. Oh, now I have to do it again. Walker's a bit more of a happy-go-lucky, go with the flow, happy to be here kind of guy. And I think in the first round of their fight, in the main event, first fight card back, I think Walker's going to benefit from that. So I'm going to go Johnny Walker by TKO in this fight at some point. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.